We love to think of history as this grand debate, right? Like a march of progress, where the best, most logical ideas always come out on top. But what if that's all wrong? What if the biggest shifts in our morals and our values aren't driven by our brains at all, but by something way more primal, something biological?
And that really gets us to the heart of what we're talking about today. On one side, you've got your opinions, the logical arguments we piece together, the rational stances we defend with all our might. But on the other side, you have what the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche called taste. And by taste, he meant that deep, gut-level feeling, that instinct for what's good or beautiful or just right. We tend to think that first column, the opinions, is what drives history. But Nietzsche? He'd say, nope, it's all about the second one.
All right, so let's dive into our first section, the intellectual masquerade. Yeah, the typical view of history is this epic battle of ideas, right? Democracy fighting tyranny, science against superstition. But for Nietzsche, this was all just a performance, kind of like a big costume party for our deeper, hidden instincts.
And man, Nietzsche just completely flips the script on this. He says that our most cherished opinions, the stuff we get into heated debates about, they're not the cause of change at all. They're just symptoms. Think of it like a fever. The fever isn't the sickness, it's just a sign that something deeper is going on. For Nietzsche, the real shift, the actual change, has already happened in our taste. This is what he called our intellectual masquerade. It's this whole song and dance we do, where we invent these super logical reasons after we've already made up our minds. Our gut has already decided. I mean, think about it, right? You hear a new idea and you have this instant, visceral reaction. You hate it. And then, only then, do you go online searching for articles and arguments to back up that feeling. Your body made the call first. Your brain is just playing PR, trying to justify it.
Okay, on to our next section. Taste, the real engine. So if our opinions are just the smoke, what's the fire? Well, for Nietzsche, that fire is taste. This is the hidden engine, the real driver behind all the major shifts in human history. Now, we need to be super clear here about what he means by taste. This isn't about whether you prefer lattes or cappuccinos or if you're into modern art. No, for Nietzsche, taste is something way deeper. It's your fundamental biological orientation to the entire world. It's that deep-seated physical revulsion or attraction you feel towards certain ways of living. And that is what forms the absolute bedrock of your values. So you see the hierarchy, right? It's perfect. First, there's this primal shift in our collective taste. And only then, way after the fact, does logic show up to the party. Reason isn't the general leading the charge into battle. It's more like the cleanup crew, the engineers who come in afterwards to build a big logical fortress around a territory our instincts have already conquered. Okay, moving on to section 3, how new values are born. So the big question is, if this taste thing is so powerful, how does a new one actually take hold and transform an entire society? Well, Nietzsche lays out this really provocative roadmap, showing how something can go from one person's gut feeling all the way to becoming society's law. He says it pretty much happens in 4 stages. So first up is assertion. You get a powerful, influential person who just declares their personal taste, what they think is awesome or, ridiculous. Step 2 is imposition. They use their social power to basically force this taste onto everybody else. Then comes step 3, habituation. After a while, it just becomes a habit for the whole community. And then finally, the last stage, necessity. That habit gets so deeply ingrained that it stops feeling like a habit and starts feeling like a universal moral duty for absolutely everyone. So let that sink in for a second. The crucial point here is that something we experience today as an absolute, unshakable moral duty could have started out as nothing more than the random, personal preference of some powerful dude centuries ago. It's a wild thought, isn't it? That our deepest ethics might have these incredibly subjective, almost arbitrary origins. All right, section 4, the body's hidden logic. So where does this all-powerful taste even come from? Well, Nietzsche doesn't chalk it up to some big mystery. He grounds it firmly in biology, in what he calls the hidden logic of our physis, basically our body. And this word, physis, is super important. It's Nietzsche's term for your specific, individual biological constitution. Think of it as the total sum of your physical self, your health, your energy levels, your entire physiological reality. And according to him, that is what dictates your unique taste and, by extension, your values. And what's crazy is how specific he gets about this. He argues that our physis is shaped by stuff like our diet, how well we digest our food, our metabolism, even something as minute as the chemical balance of salts in our blood. Your entire life philosophy, he suggests, might just be the most delicate tone that your physical body gives off. Wow. So this whole idea leads Nietzsche to split people into two basic types. First, you have the noble individual. This is the person who actually has the courage to listen to their own faces, to trust their body's unique needs and create new values from that. But then you have the common person, and they, on the other hand, don't have that internal sense of power. They ignore their own body and just follow the prepackaged opinions society hands them, always looking for a teacher to tell them what's right and wrong. And honestly, this is a total game changer of an idea. Moral revolutions, these huge shifts in what we believe, they don't happen because some old idea gets logically refuted in a debate. No, they happen because that old value just starts to feel ugly. It feels stale or weak to a population whose collective physical state, their physes, has changed. The shift is aesthetic. It's about beauty and ugliness, long before it's ever intellectual. Which brings us to our final section, the courage to be yourself. So, okay, why does any of this matter to you? For Nietzsche, this is not just some abstract philosophical exercise. It's a direct call to action. It's a challenge for you to become a sovereign creator of your own life, instead of just being an actor reciting lines in someone else's play. And this quote right here just nails the essence of his whole project. The highest form of wisdom, what he called the gay science, or you could say joyful wisdom, is having the guts to avow, to own up to your own physical constitution and all its quirky requirements. It's about being true to your own physis, especially when it goes against what everyone else is doing. And really, that's the end goal here, to become sovereign. A sovereign individual is someone who's finally broken free from what Nietzsche called the shackles of collective opinion. They stop looking outside themselves for what to value. Instead, they've learned to trust the authority of their own deeply personal taste. They become the architects of their own lives, creating their own purpose, their own meaning. So that leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to think about. I want you to take a hard look at your strongest beliefs, the values you would defend to the death. Are they really yours, the product of your own sovereign mind? Or are they just an echo, the ghost of a taste you inherited, a biological script that was written long, long before you ever came along?